Hey, music lovers, welcome to Musical Miles Podcast. I am your host, Byron Duffin, and I am here today with Mr. Chad Prather.
What's up, buddy?
Oh, not much. We are here in Las Vegas, Nevada.
We're sitting in the Benihana.
Well, pretty close.
It kind of sounds like the club.
It is. This is actually the Zen Lounge.
Is this a Zen Lounge next to the Benihana?
Next to Benihana. Thanks to Espuela Productions, Mr. Cody Odom. And we have a mutual friend, Cody and I do, in guy from up in Pendleton, Oregon, named Pat Beard.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know Pat, but
I know of Pat.
Pat made the introduction to Cody and I. I was looking for a place to do the podcast, and this has been a great deal because they have a great watch party here. This is the best kept secret in Vegas, as far as I'm concerned.
Not for much longer.
No.
It's really starting to become a really cool party for NFR.
Well, they have some great artists, some great musical artists that come in here that they bring in, and it's really going to blow up this weekend because they got some really cool artists coming in. So Braxton Keith and Hudson Westbrook. But Ryder Grimes is a Texas boy.
Yeah.
He'll be here tomorrow.
Yeah.
And we actually interviewed Ryder in Texas about a month ago down at Green Hall. So
that's another good place to do an interview.
Oh, my gosh. We got to interview 3 people there. It was so cool.
Yeah.
But this party provided us the opportunity to meet you.
Yeah, man. This was sort of a last minute. I used to come out to NFR back when I was a part of Ride Television, doing equestrian TV. We were out here. I'd be out here about 15 straight days.
Right.
And 5 locations a day, and it was just exhausting. And you get to a point where you sort of burn out on it. And then we would come out and do my show over at Treasure Island on the Cirque du Soleil stage a couple of nights. That was a big show, a lot of fun. And that was funny because they would set up the press junkets, you'd hit radio stations starting about 6 o'clock in the morning, and you do about 7 or 8 a day.
Yeah.
And I can remember those guys over there saying, "You're the only artist we've ever had who hit all of the radio stuff we set up, all the appointments." I was like, well, man, I'm out here to make money. Out here to get people's butts in the seats.
Right.
So anyway, then COVID hit and shut the whole world down, and so it really kind of changed the atmosphere of everything. I think they're just now finally getting back to rebuilding Vegas NFR in a big way. And I think this event is better than ever.
Yeah.
In terms of the people who show up, the people who come, everybody seems to be out here at the same time. It's like a family reunion.
And they're here to spend money.
They really are.
It is just amazing to me. My wife has worked for Stetson Clothing Company for 18 years here. So this is her 18th year just at the finals. She doesn't work for them the rest of the year, but just at the finals. But I kind of helped set that up years ago. I spent a few years in the rope business and used to sponsor some cowboys, and we were looking for a clothing sponsor, and Stetson and Roper really stepped up. And so I've had a great relationship with those guys for years. And so, we've seen this thing progress. And of course, even since they came in 86 was about the first years they were here.
Yeah, sounds about right.
And we bought my in-laws a package deal back then. We got them 2 plaza seats in a room at the one of the old hotels. Now I can't even think of it.
One down on Fremont.
Well, no, it was right here off the Strip.
Yeah.
But they were there. They were there for a few years, and then they imploded it, and then they moved over to the Stardust. But that package in those days cost $700 for 2 plaza seats, and I mean they were giving seats away to the NFR because they couldn't, and now you can't get one.
No, you can't get them. I remember a few years ago when my father passed away, I called my mother on the phone. I said, "Mom, you've been through a rough time, a couple of years dealing with him, watching his decline." I said, "Mom, I'll take you anywhere in the world. Where do you want to go?" And she said, "I want to go to Las Vegas." And I said, "Fine, I'll take you to Vegas." She goes, "Yeah, I remember back in 1972, 1973, going out there, and Kenny Rogers was playing in the lounge over in the corner." And I said, "It's changed a little bit.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different." And I said, "Who do you want to bring with us?" And she said, "I want to bring the preacher and his wife." So we came out. I brought them out. We had a blast, man. We had a good time. We came out for about 4 or 5 days and just had a blast. And that was right before NFR a few years ago. And so, yeah, that was a.
Well, I've
reintroducing her to Vegas and the changes was interesting.
I've been coming here for many years. My grandparents had a home in Southern California, and so my parents would drive them down there.
Yeah.
They'd spend the winters there. after farming all year, and then they'd go hang out in Hemet, California. But we always stop in Vegas. So I've been coming, and I remember the days of 99-cent shrimp cocktails and $3.99 breakfast buffets, right?
Yeah.
All you could eat buffets. Those days are long gone.
Gone.
Yeah, and $19 hotel rooms, and yeah. So, and I've seen the hotels come and go and be blown up on.
Yeah, they've imploded things,
oh my
rebuilt.
Gosh.
I was out here with Espuela for the Super Bowl party here at WestGate the year before last. Not the last Super Bowl, but the one before. They invited us out, and they really rolled out the red carpet here.
You bet.
You know, we're sitting on the couch downstairs at the big party. I'm sitting there with Kool and the gang.
Oh, wow.
And you never know who you're going to see.
No.
But they put on a big party here. And the WestGate is a to me, this is the spot. Like, this is where a lot of the, the folks that are just kind of blue-collar, hard-working, down-to-earth folks,
Sure.
Western world, come out here, and it's
Yeah.
like a family reunion. I love coming to the WestGate. There's so much history in this building.
Oh, yeah. This is where Elvis was.
Yeah,
for
and I mean,
many
if
years.
anybody's ever been here, not a lot of people maybe have had an opportunity to go up to the top 2 floors, which were Elvis's.
Okay.
And I mean, it's like 30,000 square feet.
Oh, my.
And he owned all of that. When he had his residency here, of course,
Right.
it was the Sands.
Yes.
And anybody that watched the movie that came out with Austin Butler last summer.
Yeah.
It features this building a lot.
You bet.
They did a
You
lot
bet.
of AI generation of it, but it represents this back when this was the Sands. But I've been up there, and it's still decorated with Elvis's stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they haven't changed anything.
Oh, wow.
I mean, from the wallpaper to the tile in the bathrooms to the floor, everything, the carpet,
Oh, my goodness.
the furniture, everything
Yeah.
is just like it was when Elvis was in there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, really
Well,
cool.
And most people don't know that, unless they listen to this podcast and they hear you tell the story. And
Yeah,
so,
but the theater here is historic. I mean, they got,
Oh, yeah.
Barry Manilow does his residency here,
Right,
which
right.
is, it's crazy that these guys who've been around for a million years, whether it's Wayne Newton or Barry Manilow or,
And I've never seen Barry, but I saw Wayne Newton here. When I was in
Yeah.
high school, my dad flew me down. They were in Tucson at the horse races, and we
Right.
met him in Vegas and came up, and we saw oh, my gosh, Bobby Vinton, and we saw Eddie Arnold and Wayne Newton, you
Yeah.
know, all in one weekend. And
Yeah.
what a great time that was. You
real
know?
entertainers.
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
I mean, legitimate
yeah.
entertainers.
Yeah. Yeah, so we've seen the world change a lot, here in Vegas especially. But
Yeah.
well, let's talk about Chad. Let's talk about your.
That's a boring topic.
No, dude, you're kind of a phenom. Showed
People-
up on the scene in 2015, right? Was the big,
my career, people ask me what I do. I do a little bit of all of it. I podcast. I'm one of those people who's fortunate enough to make a living podcasting.
Sure.
Built
That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah, I mean, it's if you can make a living running your mouth, it's a good gig if you can
Yeah.
get it. That's for sure. I grew up in Georgia laying bricks with family business, and I knew that I didn't want to go back to that.
Right.
Went to the University of Georgia, and
Yeah, go Bulldogs.
yeah, man, they're winging their way in there this season. But I got out of there, and I've always kind of had the gift of gab. I've always been in some form or fashion of the communication industry.
Sure.
And traveled all over the world and communicating, talking, standing in front of crowds, and wound up doing some radio and television. And my career, people ask, what do you do? I podcast. I'm a stand-up comedian,
Right.
musician, jackleg musician, but I've been fortunate enough to have a good career with it. And, I've written books and all these different things that I've done. But I came into it backwards. Most people, for instance, in the comedy world, they start in a comedy club, and then maybe they get in a theater, and then maybe they get a social media following, and then maybe they get on television.
Right.
I got on television, then got a massive social media following,
Right.
and then started doing big theaters, doing comedy, and then COVID hit, and I started going to smaller venues,
Sure.
like comedy clubs, and like I'll be in, I don't want to timestamp this too much, but this weekend I'll be in Tampa, Florida, Wesley Chapel, Florida, doing 5 shows in 3 nights because we
Right.
can put 400 or 500 in the room.
Sure.
But we'll do 5 shows
Sure.
rather than one big one.
Sure.
And we just have a blast doing it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're doing more of those kind of things
Yeah.
these days. But I love being on a stage. And the reason I do is because there's no algorithm, there's no filter, there's no screen between you and the audience.
Yeah.
they can't shut it down. It's a transference of ideas from my brain, from my mouth, using language into people's heads. And they're right there, So people always say, if you had to give up one thing you do, what would it be? That's hard, because of all the things I do, one of the things I love is being able to interact with people.
Yes.
In face-to-face. And so being on a stage allows you to do that. And also during COVID, we went full-blown into the music stuff, because I've always written funny songs.
Right.
I always said, why tell a joke when you could sing it?
Yeah.
So we've written a lot of funny songs over the years. I say we like I'm schizophrenic and there's multiple personalities in there, but I have written a lot of songs.
Yeah.
And when COVID hit, there were a lot of my musician friends around Texas who couldn't go to work because the venues were shut down.
No, exactly.
And I said, well, guys, I have a national audience. And I said to some of them, why don't you come on, jump on the bus with me, and let's go.
You bet.
So, like, guys like Steve Helms and Ben McPherson, who are playing here every afternoon. They play every year for this event during NFR here at the WestGate in the afternoons before the watch party. They're still with me.
Yeah.
And we still tour around, and we do shows, we do music, do a little comedy. It's a variety show. My goal was always to do something similar to what Will Rogers did back in the 20s.
Oh, okay.
Who, it was vaudevillian, and most people don't know what vaudeville is.
Yes.
But it was a variety show. There was something to be seen, from the curtains. He had two $2 million curtains.
Really?
And he would put the big shimmering, glittery red curtains. And everybody saw these curtains. They were $2 million in that day and age. So that ought to tell you. But he had two of them, and he would ship them to the location he was going to next. So he'd have one in this location and already have one in the next location, because they were so massive.
Right.
Excuse me, I got the coughing fits out here in Las Vegas. But there was a visual element to it, and then there was music, and then there was, he was a roper and all these different things.
He did the trick roping
and the storytelling.
And he was a humorist.
And that's why I've always used two phrases. If you go to my website, I've always used two phrases. I've always said I'm an armchair philosopher and I'm an observational humorist. And I take those things specifically from Will Rogers. And the Rogers family reached out to me years ago, the ones both in Oklahoma and in California. His grandchildren said, we really do believe that you in a lot of ways carry his legacy. I said, I don't think I could carry his jockstrap. I think a person like Mike Rowe with Dirty Jobs and all that. Yeah, I think Mike does a better job of carrying that mantle in his way. He's so eloquent. But I do at least appreciate the sentiment, and I do appreciate the I'm a conservative guy. He was a lifelong Democrat back when Democrats sort of had some common sense. I probably shouldn't say that on your show, but we make fun of everybody.
Yeah,
but
that's okay. That's okay.
These days it seems like everybody on both sides of politics, nobody's got common sense anymore.
Well, and everybody gets their feelings hurt.
Everybody's
really
easily
easy.
offended.
Yeah.
It manufactured oppression and victimhood, which is crazy. But he was a lifelong Democrat, but he made a lot of sense. He made fun of his own political party, which I appreciated that. I do that as well. And they made him the honorary mayor of Beverly Hills. I mean, you can go to the Will Rogers Park right there in the middle of Beverly Hills to this day.
Right.
And I've been there numerous times. Actually, that's where the late George Michael got busted doing something nefarious in the men's bathroom a few years ago, which we don't want to bring that down. But Will Rogers is a great character. I've always emulated that. People say, what can we expect if we come to one of your live shows? I was like, all of it. We're going to do music. We're going to do comedy. We're going to interact with the crowd. We're going to interact with each other on stage. And we have a good time doing that. So we've sort of built an interesting brand of entertainment. Just did a show the other day, and I think it was the 6th show I've done at this particular venue over the years, 6th or 7th. And they said, you always bring a different show.
Sure.
That's something really cool to hear.
I don't imagine that you repeat much, and one thing I appreciate about you, Chad, to be honest with you, is you're very approachable. You came and did a show in Idaho Falls, Idaho, a couple of years ago, and my wife and I went to dinner at a restaurant right down the corner from the theater.
Right.
And we walked down to see if we could get our tickets at Will Call. And you actually walked out and stood on the street and visited with us for a few minutes, and we had a good visit. And that was a cool experience. And then here at the rodeo last night, we were doing the watch party here. I did some podcast interviews yesterday afternoon. Mr. Steve Helms, that's your buddy. and you were here at the bar, and I just approached you and said, hey, come sign this autograph this guitar for me, and you said, you bet, more than willing to do that. And then I asked you if you'd be willing to be on the podcast, and you said sure. You know, and so I appreciate that about you. I think you're very approachable, and I love your comedy, and I love your wit and your humor. And I've followed you on social media for a long time, and I always like your your approach to life in general, and I know you're very conservative. And you stepped up when you don't think it's right. You step up and talk about it.
Yeah,
and you even stepped up and ran for governor.
Ran for governor in Texas. I was on the ballot in the primary in 2022. It just didn't feel like that the governor was doing a great job in response to a lot of the COVID stuff that was happening in the state, and so we did what we could to try to help shape the conversation.
Sure.
You know, we weren't under any delusion to think that, you know, we were going to be in a situation where we were going to win the thing, but we helped shape the conversation.
Sure.
And there were some other primary challengers that did the same thing, and we were able to affect some things. And so, some people thought it was a joke. Some people thought it was some big punchline, but it wasn't. It was very serious. It was a very difficult 19 months of my life of doing that. But no, what I've tried to do is I've tried to be comfortable in my own skin. I don't know if you can try to do that. You either are or you aren't.
Right.
You know, you are who you are. The biggest compliment that I can get is something like what you just said, being approachable. People have told me that I'm real or genuine. There's no pretense with me. What's the point? You know, people say, do you get recognized? Does that bother you? Does it bother you to stop and take pictures with people? No. I mean, that's what we do.
Right.
That's what you want to do.
Well, you're a public figure, so that's just part of it.
It is. It's what you chose to do.
Right.
It's not for everybody. I don't think of myself as being famous. I'll have people every now and then say, oh, Chad's famous. I'm not famous. Blake Shelton is famous. But again, there's a lot of people in the world who might not know who Blake Shelton is.
No, right.
It's all about it. I mean, you're not famous if you have to ask who somebody is. And so I was like, I'm not famous, but I do have a fan base.
But you're recognizable.
I guess. And
I think you're relatable.
Well, I have a following, and I have a large following, and I consider those people friends, not fans. And I really do appreciate them because I didn't expect this. And I don't think people are created. I don't think God created people to be famous. I think it's more pressure than people should be under. I don't think you're supposed to live under that kind of scrutiny in a fishbowl with that many eyes on you. And I think it causes a lot of damage. So I've tried to keep that in perspective. You know, I'll walk through an airport or into a restaurant. It doesn't even cross my mind that somebody might recognize me.
Sure.
I see it when they do.
Yeah.
I can see it from across the room when somebody's like, or they're talking or they're pointing. Yeah. You notice it. I'm aware of it, but I don't let that affect.
Sure.
You know, I'll be walking through the airport in Denver or something, and then I'll get on the plane, and somebody will send me a Facebook message. Said, we think we just saw you in the airport.
Yeah. Yeah.
You did. You should have.
We
didn't want to interrupt you. And I was like, please interrupt me.
Yeah.
I'm not. There's nothing you can interrupt.
I think the whole point to what you do and what you've done in your career is to, like you said, affect change and influence people, not negatively or positive, but just listen, this is my opinion and I share it with you. Right. And it's like with us, and the reason we started this podcast, we love live music. That is our favorite type of entertainment is live music. So, and we want to share those artists with our followers and with our friends and family. Look, we just met or just got introduced to a new artist, and we want to share that with you through this medium, through the podcast, through the social media, however we do that. And help build their following, as well as our own. You know, I mean, obviously we're in this for a reason to wanted to share that, and hopefully it turns out to be something that we can monetize and turn it into a.
And it will be.
Yeah,
it will be.
At some point.
The key to it is persistence. You know, we went through. I've been on some major networks with my podcast. I was on the Blaze Network for 6 years, 5 years, 6. And still a contributor with them. But, you know, I'm 100% independent now. I've been independent before. I love being an independent podcaster and producing my own stuff. I've built a great team of people around me. We're in a rebuilding phase right now because we've changed the format from we do ours live.
Right, and you do it daily.
We do it daily. We at least do Monday through Thursday, and then on Fridays I do what I call Chad's Church.
Okay.
Which is where I do a little more motivational, inspirational,
Sure.
You know, people they're kind of turned off by the idea of what's Chad's church, and it's like, well, it rolls off the tongue.
Sure.
But I want to give you something that's a little more motivational to maybe, you know, a little something, you know, make a point where you can hang your hat on it a little bit and say, okay, that helps my life. Because I've always told people, I said, if you want to describe my success in life, you have to be comfortable with the vocabulary of the divine, because it really was a God thing to me.
Sure.
You know, when you step out, there's something very supernaturally realistic about when you step out on a faith and you take a risk, how things sort of align themselves.
Yeah.
It's like then everything kind of comes together.
Yeah.
And so, you know, just recently I made an independent move to kind of step away from an old production company. And within a matter of days, a new producer came along. I mean, just got connected with this guy. And he might be one of the best producers I've ever had.
Yeah.
23-year-old kid out of Tampa, Florida.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, you know, where do these people come from? It's like people get provided.
No,
relationships happen. And that's what happens like with you, with the podcasting and connecting and with the musicians that you guys promote. You just never know when that seed is going to get planted in the right place, you know?
Right. Well, we don't know, and we don't know what's going to be the catalyst to move us to the next level.
Yeah.
And so we have hopes and we have dreams, and you know, I found myself suddenly and unexpectedly retired the 1st of July.
That's always fun, right?
I worked for a company. They actually hired me away from another major manufacturer. Grew up in the potato and the ag industry in Idaho, and very well connected in that industry. And I don't know everybody, but I'm literally one person away from everybody in that industry.
Right.
And the guys that I worked for didn't realize, never really took advantage of that experience and that background that I had. But I was the brand president. But I walked into a meeting July 1st, and they said, yeah, we can't afford you anymore.
That's fun.
And that is fun. And that was kind of a scary deal.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the hell am I going to do? Now, I had some other companies reach out to me and say, man, we would love to have you on our team. And I said, you know, I'm going to take a little bit of time and try and figure out where I want to be. And so we decided to start this podcast. And it was really amazing how things lined out and how many great artists that we got to interview right away. Django Walker,
awesome.
Jerry Jeff's son, and
yeah, sure.
And
I know Django. Django's a great guy.
Great guy, and Cody Canada.
Yep, Cody's great.
And the Bronze.
Yeah.
You know, Muzzy Braun and his
Muzzy,
boys.
Mickey and all the boys. Yeah.
Mickey. Now I haven't interviewed Mickey yet, but I've interviewed Muzzy and interviewed Gary Braun.
Gary.
Got to hang out, and Jeff Crosby, and you know, they're just. And then we just put this group of people together that we knew, and just one thing led to another. So we've been very fortunate to and blessed to have interviewed some great artists in a short period of time. You know, we're probably close to 60 artists that we've interviewed already.
Fantastic.
Since mid-July, and we've posted 30 interviews, and we've done some songwriter festivals. We got to interview Bryce Long, who's a singer or songwriter, you know, written stuff for he wrote Heartache on the Dance Floor for John Party. And written stuff for Hauser, and just a ton of cool people. And so it's slowly but surely it's building, and we haven't even posted all those, and here we are still interviewing a ton of people. So we probably have 30 interviews in the can.
That's awesome. And that's the key to it is persistence, having real conversations with people. We live in a small world, right? I mean, technology's brought us all together in a big way.
Exactly.
I was at Mar-a-Lago having dinner for a campaign event for Carrie Lake when she was running for Senate in Arizona. Donald Trump was there, and I was there with Roseanne Barr and Jim Brewer and some others, and we were having dinner, and Donald Trump was there. He walks up to me, sticks out his hand, and calls me by name. Now, I had not seen the president in 3 years, right?
Yeah.
But he calls me by name because he's watched my stuff. That's
Sure.
Oddly enough, he's watched my videos, and he knows who I am. And I'm like, how wild is it that social media has made the world so small that the President of the United States knows your name, knows who you are.
Yeah.
And I've gotten connected with so many people. You know, the record label out of Nashville that I'm with, Chris Wallen, reached out to me years ago. Chris wrote songs like Don't Blink for Kenny Chesney.
Yeah.
Got a little crazy last night for Kenny Chesney. He wrote Speed and you know, Something to Be Proud Of for Montgomery Gentry.
You bet.
He's written all these songs for Toby Keith. And he reached out to me. He said, I'm a big fan. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? Brian Kelly from Florida Georgia Line, BK. He and I have become very close friends. Jason Aldean. These guys reach out to me, and it's like, what? Yeah, how do you even know who I am? I give Brian Kelly a hard time. I was just with him a couple of weeks ago at his place in Florida. And I said, does it ever bother you when because Florida-Georgia line, right? We give them a hard time. I said, does it ever bother you that you ruined country music? and he's worth about $30 million, right?
I'm sure, yeah.
And he goes, nah.
Well, why not?
I said, but you got to admit, in a serious moment, I said, you got to admit, y'all changed. It was a whole new genre.
Well, country is not country. What you and I grew up on, right? No Merle. No.
I say my thing about country music, my spiel on that is real simple. I say I grew up on Willie Whalen, Merle, George and Conway.
Yeah.
So you got George Strait and George Jones, and then I said, Loretta, Patsy, and Dolly.
Yeah.
And I said, real country music involves a couple of ingredients: cheating, drinking, dying, and leaving.
Yeah.
If you got a girl in cut-off blue jeans on a diamond plate tailgate of a pickup truck backed up in a pasture to a bonfire, while speakers go boom boom and she sips a little something something out of a Dixie cup, that's not country music. That's country mixed with rap, and it's crap.
Yes.
And now it's its own genre.
Yeah.
So I appreciate some of these guys that are coming along now, like Zach Top and some of the folks that you've already named,
talented.
who are just like, country is a mule's ass. You know, I mean, they're just country folks, and they sing about what life's about. And there's
guys like Coulter Wall and Zach Top, they're bringing country back
they
to
really
that
are,
country
man.
that country level.
They really are. And I'm so appreciative of my buddy Cody Johnson for doing. He's kind of brought the cowboy country back.
Yeah,
which was
sure.
lost. They ridiculed George Strait in 1979 for wearing the cowboy hat. And, Kojo has been true to who he is.
Yes, no, they're cowboys.
They're cowboys. They're a rope and riding cowboy. And trust me,
and I love that about that. And that's where I come from. I'm a cowboy. I'm an Idaho farm boy that always wanted to be a cowboy.
Right.
And so I learned how to rope. I roped calves and team roped and did all that stuff, rode cutters. And so I appreciate those guys, and I love the fact that they are true to who they are.
Yeah.
Zach's a Washington boy. His dad
Sure
runs
is.
an auction company up there and is a great auctioneer. And you got great cowboys like Pat Beard that recognize those guys. And I just love that. And come to the finals, you can't have the NFR without great country music.
Right.
You just can't.
They go hand in hand.
They go hand in hand. And so that this is such a great time of year, and it's such a great place to gather everybody together. Like you said, your fans are your fans, and they're like family.
Yeah.
And it's the same here in the rodeo world. We're family.
I always joke. I say, I come from a family of cowboys. We had Prather quarter horses back home. My uncle passed away early this year, and it was kind of the last of a dying breed for our family. But I say I come from a family of cowboys. I was the least cowboy of all of them.
Sure.
Came from a family of musicians, but I was the least musician of all of them. But I was the only person in my family that was ever able to take those two things and make any dang money out of it.
Yeah. There's a lot of glory in being a cowboy and not much money in it.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So I make a joke about that because the cowboy culture is a dying breed. I've always, even though I've in the arenas that I'm in, even with politics, I've always kept the cowboy hat as a part of my identity and brand. Because as my friend Keith Mundy, who's the CEO of American Hats, Keith always says that hat represents something.
Yeah.
You might have a guy that works on Wall Street and goes to his penthouse on Park Place, looks out over Central Park, but in his heart, he dreams of being out west. He dreams of being, on a range somewhere. So the spirit of the cowboy lives inside of people, even if experientially they don't get to carry that out.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that interestingly enough, if you do the research, you'll discover that China has come after the cowboy culture. Chinese entities now own a lot of rodeo entities.
Oh, yeah.
They own, Paramount, which creates Yellowstone.
Oh, yeah. No, I was just going to say, Taylor Sheridan has done more for the cowboy culture in the last 5 years than...
Hugely so.
Oh, my gosh.
Hugely so in a lot of really practical ways and ways that people don't even think about. And I joke about it because I say, China came after the cowboy culture and after our farmland and all that because they knew that was a stab at the heart of America.
Oh, yeah.
Because that history is the heart of America. But, Taylor, everybody wants a cowboy hat now.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and you know what he did? anybody that knows horses and the horsemanship and knows that ranching culture, they watch Yellowstone, and it's like watching a football movie. It ain't accurate.
Right.
It's like watching a baseball movie.
Right,
It's not
right,
accurate.
right.
And I know, like he's got the new Landman out. Anybody in the oil field knows it ain't accurate.
Sure.
That's not what it's about. But what he did do was he put attention on, in sometimes a corny way, but he put attention on the fact that I tell you, I was doing a television show back when I was on Ride TV, and I was wearing the cowboy hat. I was in Philadelphia, and we were at Geno's making cheesesteaks. I was in there, and everybody knows about the cheesesteaks.
You bet.
So I'm in there, and this guy's giving me a hard time. He's working in there. He was really kind of bothered that I had a cowboy hat on. He's working in there. And finally I stopped him, and I said, hey, you make a living making steak, right? And he goes, yeah. And I said, a guy that wears this hat gave you that career because you wouldn't have that beef without a guy that wears this hat.
Yeah.
And we came to an understanding.
Yeah.
It's all connected. And so I said, it's an homage for me to a culture that's dying. And, Taylor, he did a good job. Like, for instance, if you watch that show, you'll see Resistol hats, you'll see Stetson hats, you'll see Greeley Hat Company, and you'll see American hats.
Yeah.
And people who know, he didn't just pick one hat and stereotype the whole deal. He spread the love out. And so he's blessed a lot of our friends that are musicians, whether it's Shane Smith, Whiskey Myers, Lainey Wilson would not be where she is today if it wasn't for Taylor Sheridan, including her in the show. So,
Ryan Bingham. You look at his acting career, but his musical career, which ties into Corb Lund, and it goes on down. It's a trickle down, and it's that Texas. And Corb's not a Texan; he's a Canadian.
He's Canadian, but still, he's in that genre.
But the music has benefited greatly from Yellowstone.
Yeah,
and not only Yellowstone. Go back to the biker show that he did.
Sons of Anarchy.
Sons of Anarchy. Jeff Crosby, who's an Idaho boy that benefited. He wrote music and played music on Sons of Anarchy. There's a ton of artists that have benefited from Taylor's.
There's a benefit with all of that stuff, and Keith Mundy, if he were here, he'd tell you right now with American Hats. I can remember a few years ago when they were like, "Wow, we sold 1,000 hats at NFR." Now they're going to sell 2,600 this week. They can't keep up with all the hat demand.
Oh no,
and it's all because of Yellowstone.
Yeah, without a doubt. It's incredible. And I have friends that from the horse world. The Tim McQuay's family. Mandy McCutcheon and Cade and all those guys.
Yep.
They all got to experience that. And I've known those guys for years because that was the world I worked in for a number of years before.
And you got to give a shout out to the world's greatest cowboy, Dale Brisby.
Oh my God!
It really put cowboy culture on the forefront of everything.
There's a guy who's made a fortune out of nothing, right? Out of being the greatest cowboy,
world's greatest bull rider,
and the world's greatest bullshitter.
Yeah.
And you know what? But hats off to him because he's built an empire.
He has.
He really truly has.
I can remember back in the day when he was just getting started and he was doing that stuff, and I told him, I said, man, we were actually on an elevator here at the hotel, at another hotel, but we were on an elevator. And I looked at him and I said I called him by his real name.
Yeah.
And we won't out him, but I called him by his real name. And I said, you got to stop wearing those duck boots, because he was back in the day. He was wearing those big rubber boots, not cowboy boots.
Oh yeah.
It was a total character. And he goes, my feet are killing me walking on this concrete. I said, bro. He goes, but it's part of the brand. I said, it's time to change the brand.
Time to change the brand.
You ain't that big yet.
Yeah.
And so he went back to wearing cowboy boots.
Yeah.
And I said, bro, you can't walk around in those mud boots everywhere you go. So I remember when he was trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out what that was going to look like. And we joke about it, but he's made the Western lifestyle fun.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, and he's been able to make fun of himself.
Parody the whole thing. Yeah. Parodies himself, the whole culture,
and it's been great. It's really interesting to see what he's been able to turn this into.
Yeah.
And so, well, I appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us. It's always fun to get to hear someone else's perspective on the Western style and the industry and the music industry.
Sure.
And see what's changed, because the music industry is very different than it was 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
It is. And I encourage people, if those that are listening, I'm with Based Records out of Nashville now. We call ourselves a non-woke, unwoke, uncancelable music label because there's really good music out there, but nobody wants to release it.
Right.
Because it's being controlled by the Hollywood executives, and they don't want real country music. So I've got a song out right now called Watered Down. John Rich from Big and Rich jumped on. He sang in the chorus with me, added his voice to the harmonies. We did a song. We got a Christmas song called "I'd Be Jolly Too." Basically, it asked the question, "Why is Santa Claus so happy?" Well, if you knew where all the naughty girls lived, I'd be jolly too.
There you go.
And so, and then we got a song that was #1 on the positive country charts for almost 6 weeks, called "Famous Again." Let's make Jesus famous again.
Yeah.
Fun song. Really a country song. I mean, it's a great country song. And got another song coming out here pretty soon called "What Happened to That," which anybody that grew up in America that's our age,
Yes.
that we drank out of water hose and got beat by one.
Yes.
We
Yes.
we grew up in a different world.
Oh yeah.
And so you say, what happened to all that? And so it's a great song. And so I like to put music out with a message and have fun with it. I write a lot of joke songs, but every now and then we do some serious stuff, and it's a good time.
this podcast is really music driven.
Yeah.
It's about the music. We call it Musical Miles for a reason. We've driven tens of thousands of miles to listen to live music and meet the artists. And so I'm going to ask you to grab that Teton guitar sitting next to you. Play us a song. You pick. If you want to play something funny. There's a pick in there.
Grab this thing. See if I can angle that sucker around where we can still hear. Turn this microphone. Knocking thing. I'm breaking your stuff already.
Well, that's the backup. That's the backup sound. So
I'll put it right.
Set
there.
it right on the. Set it right on the armrest there, if you would. I'm going to turn this one over there so you get full effect.
We're a little out of tune, but that's okay.
Set it up. Tell us what you're going to play us. So what is it?
I'll give y'all a verse of "Famous Again."
Yeah, that'd be great.
I'm all dried out and coughing, but nowadays you can't watch TV without seeing these celebrities being bad and smoking crack and getting rich. And our children soak it all up like a sponge in Coca-Cola. We wonder why they turned out like they did. Now way back in the day, Mama made dang sure I knew all I had to do was look up, have someone to look up to, so I did. To this day I still do. He used to hang out with the stars, everybody knew his name. Was a long-haired living legend, co-wrote Amazing Grace. I know we can get him back on top if we pitch in. Let's make Jesus famous again. Let's make Jesus famous again. There you go. Little piece of it.
Well, thank you so much.
It's good times, man. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thanks for taking the time. I know you get to town and everybody wants a piece of you.
The beauty of it is now I come out here with zero obligations. To me, it's like a family reunion. We just come have fun, and this has been a blast with you. So thank you.
Thanks so much. Yeah, it's cool. So when you get back up to Idaho sometime, we'll make sure you have our contact info, and we'd love to, take you shooting.
That'd be great.
Take you fishing.
Yeah,
Let's do some fun stuff. We're only 90 miles from Jackson Hole and
beautiful
West
part
Yellowstone.
I love Idaho.
Yeah, it is a great place.
Yep.
It is a great place, and the only problem is the winters are a little rough on us.
Little cold.
A little rough on us old guys, but so where can they find you?
The most vain web address you could ever think of, watchchad.com. It almost sounds like an OnlyFans.
Yeah, there you go.
But I would be my only fan in that regard.
Yeah.
Watchchad.com. You can always go to chadprather.com. Takes you to the same place. If you search the Chad Prather Show, wherever podcasts are offered, you can watch it on Rumble and YouTube. And then, of course, wherever the audio is, we love our audience with the Chad Prather Show.
Yeah. Well, gosh, we appreciate you. We want you to watch us as well.
Sure.
So watch us on YouTube, Musical Miles Podcast. We look forward to listening to your show and listening to your podcast and watching you down the road. We will see you somewhere down the road. So from Las Vegas, Nevada, I am Byron Duffin with Musical Miles Podcast. Adios for now.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.